there, my name is Daniel Franco and this is the Creating Synergy podcast, your business and leadership podcast where we speak to high-profile leaders and thinkers about their careers and dig deep by asking the questions we all want the answers to, uncovering their stories, strategies, leadership lessons, and their secrets to success. Welcome back to the Creating Synergy podcast. I'm sitting here today in the beautiful home down at Glenelg of David Fogarty, CEO and founder of the David Group. Thanks for coming on the show, mate.
No, thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure. You've obviously done very, very well. Your career and your growth and scale is widely written about, and you've got your own social media channels, which I empower everyone to jump onto. You're very much the educator, so thank you for all you're doing in that space. Brands like the Oodie, Calming Blanket, Pup Nap. I know there's a lot of Oodies in my household and the blankets as well. First question I want to ask you though is what Oodie do you wear?
Yeah, I've been through a fair few in my time. The avocado and toast,
yeah,
that's our top seller, and I have a certain affinity to that one.
Yeah, my daughter's got the avocado one.
And most of Adelaide do.
Yeah. My other daughter's got the sloth, and it just suits her personality.
Yeah, well, that's the point of the characters. Yeah. They've got to reconcile with the person.
Absolutely. Is the avocado one your favourite? Is that the ultimate?
Look, they're all cool. I want a golden retriever one. So nice. For Sherlock, which hopefully you can't hear him upstairs, but that'll be good.
Brilliant. So I said your story is widely spoken about, but I'd love to really unpack that a little bit more, just for the people listening in who may have not heard your story before. How did this all come about? How did we find ourselves here in this beautiful home in Glenelg and you're building this, what is now a global brand?
Yeah. I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial since I can remember. I wish I could remember the causes of why I became, who I am. I think I was just always trying to achieve, whether it be, in sport or in business. I had a really amazing time growing up. My parents were incredibly inspiring. They're a small business owner and, incredibly nurturing family that encouraged risk taking and learning and those kind of things, So from that point, I just kept trying things. I pushed myself in the last year of school, the earlier years of school. I was borderline going to get expelled, but that's another story. And then, went into university, flunked out of that twice. And all during that time, I was growth hacking Instagrams, creating Instagrams and selling advertising on those Instagrams. So that really got me into the digital space. Sold out very, very early from those kind of things because I just didn't understand the potential and where the world was going. And then ended up, starting consulting for a lot of brands, small brands, just learning the skills, learning how to do digital marketing. That then pushed me into eCommerce, which I launched Calming Blankets. It was a weighted blanket. That was our biggest brand. I was like, let's launch wearable blankets. It wasn't a huge leap from that. Then we started growing the David Group, which is now a portfolio company. We've done over $400 million in 4 years, and we're quite profitable as well.
Doing very well. Oh, can we touch on why you were going to get expelled?
Yeah.
You said that's a story another day, but let's talk about that today.
I was looking through my report cards the other day trying to figure out when the kind of inflection point was. And I think it was, I went to, it was year 9 and I went to the parent-teacher interview. And it was the one where my dad came instead of my mum this time. And I just got laid out. Like the teachers, every single one of them just absolutely slaughtered me. So,
what was it? What was it like? You just talking too much, muck around, wasn't interested?
I don't know if I can swear, a little shit.
You can, yeah.
I was just a little shit. I was, completely disruptive to class. I wouldn't concentrate. I wouldn't apply myself. I don't think I was ever rude, but definitely I'm sure the teachers found me rude because I wasn't paying attention. So that, year 9, Dad was like, that's it. I had the blessing of going to an incredible school, which is Mercedes. And I was squandering that. And after the interview, I was driving home with my dad, and he just said, look, like, if you don't want this school, that's fine. Like, we'll just move to a public school. And like, if this is what you want to do, it is. And it wasn't, aggressive in any way. It was just really eye-opening. And then that was probably the first step.
Did you stay there?
I did stay there. The next year I had 2 teachers. And I think that this is, this is quite powerful in that those teachers sat me down and actually explained that what I had was special. Not special, but I had potential, which everyone does have in their own way, but they explained why I had potential. Like I was relatively intelligent, and I was very, very curious all the time. And that's a superpower. And the wanting to learn is really, really important. So they started to take some interest in me, and they really did nurture me. They took me kind of off in class sometimes and taught me extra things. My grades started coming up, and it's these positive feedback loops that are so important. Negative feedback loops of getting yelled at in class, hating class even more. That's a negative feedback loop. This was a positive feedback loop. They rewarded me. I got the better grades, and I got kind of addicted to that process. And then from there, I wasn't A+ student, but I really applied myself. I did the hardest subjects possible: physics, maths, chemistry, like in year 12, just to try to prove myself there. And they were really kind of that inflection point. So there's plenty of lessons within that.
Can we name the teachers? Who are?
Yeah. So, Mrs. Corrigan and Mr. Graham was really good, and Mr. Wolf was also awesome. And then I ended up having Miss Lay as well, who she, chemistry was a slug for me. Ended up getting an A in the exam, which is like a testament to her. So, yeah, I think. I don't know what the school is like now. I don't have heaps of involvement, but I recognize that when I was there, I had some pretty great people.
Isn't it? It's so important. And kudos to those teachers. Hopefully they're listening in and watching your journey. The power of the teachers that nurture our children, right, and nurture the kids growing up is so fundamental. And sometimes I think the job itself gets lost on these teachers. So
definitely,
it's so good to hear that, because you're changing the world now, right? Like, so 4 teachers or 4 or 5 teachers that you've named there have potentially created what is.
They have such an access point into these kids' lives, and I think that the frequency is so important to help nurture. And teachers and parents, they're the main people that have so much access. So. Yeah, it's really important, but I've had great influences along my way. And I've also had bad influences that I've learned what not to do as well. So, I think it's really important growing up like that.
There is a statistic somewhere floating around. I don't have it, and don't quote me on it, but they say that you're more likely to go into your own business if your parents have run their own business, right? Like it's 90 percentile or something like that. Did your parents having their own business running, was it a successful business that they ran? Was it those teachings, those learnings that really drove that curiosity in you at an early age?
Yeah. So my grandpa, when he came to Adelaide, he started Classic Timber Furniture, which is on Anzac Highway. Yeah. And then my dad, it was always a family business, and my dad took over that. It was never like a ginormous multinational or anything like that. But it was, it was a successful business. It paid for our life, and we're all quite well off and happy and stuff like that. So that is, I think that again, it's these positive mentorships or things you see in a positive light that shape what you want to do. I'm sure there's people that had a very negative experience with their parents with business and would vow never to do it. Yeah. So there's undoubtedly that. I think people don't even understand, like it's probably a bad thing about our education system is that people don't even understand that business is an option for them, that there's low barriers to entry nowadays to start a business. Any kid can start a business. Right. So even just understanding, seeing it in the smallest form, and this is why it should be taught within school, business and how entrepreneurship and those kind of things as well. So yes, it definitely had a positive impact.
You're so right. We did a talk at a school recently, and the amount of feedback that I got from parents and the like was just the idea that a child could get into podcasting. Like you could see some of the light bulbs go off. This is actually an option. This is all something I'd listen to on the radio. So you're right. If we can introduce entrepreneurship and the idea of starting business. Andrew Nunn, who's the chief entrepreneur of South Australia, is big on that, and he's talking about how do we get that happening more, because this is how we create innovation. This is how we grow this state. This is how we grow put Australia on the map from a startup point of view. That's what we really want to see.
So true.
I'm really interested in one of your videos. You mentioned of your YouTube videos. Now you have a very big following on YouTube, so anyone listening in, get in and check that out, because you'll learn an amazing amount of stuff on e-commerce and all the above. But you said if there was one thing that you could do again, like you could change, I should say, it would be your general mindset. Can you elaborate on the general mindset change? What's so terrible about the experience that you are in, this brand that you've built, which is, widely successful? Why would you change your mindset?
I think when we are our mindset in every single way, and I think there's very beautiful things about business, and then there's also negative things about business, and those negative things are widely known, like the fear of failure, the fear that we can disappoint people, the stress, the time commitment. Things can become very toxic if you don't actually enjoy every single part of it as well. You're forced to do something you don't like. I think what I want within my mindset is a detachment of materialistic things, because I think, desire is just a contract of you'll be unhappy until that's fulfilled. And then once you get it, you will want something else. And that's just the hedonic treadmill. You're just constantly running. That's a Naval quote. I highly recommend anyone listening should look him up. So
he's my absolute favorite.
He's my favorite. Yeah. Like he's amazing. There's all these business like tycoons, and I aspire to be more around that than a billionaire nowadays. There's a really cringeworthy clip of me walking up on stage at my school saying, in 5 years' time I'll be a billionaire, and I'm just like, I don't want that anymore. That's just not my desire whatsoever. My desire is to be happy, healthy, and just generally peaceful in life. So I think that's the mindset I'm working. I constantly have this battle and around that the ambition that I have and the wanting to prove what I know that I can prove, because I can become a billionaire. Like I generally believe that if I keep working hard and keep learning and keep on this trajectory with a bit of luck as well. There's always that bit of luck. But at the same time, I don't think that would be the right decision for my own happiness. And I'm working at the same time to become more peaceful and mindful.
I think you're right. If you become, or you're on the path to a billionaire, not putting down anyone who's in that realm, because they're obviously changing the world, right? You can only get that big if you are having an impact. But you're right. There's something that you have to sacrifice in there, and it might be happiness. It might be your general health. It might be, if you've got a family, it might be time with your loved ones, right? So
I think becoming a billionaire from inventing and creating a lot of utility and happiness and efficiency for other people, employment, like that's a huge reward in itself.
Correct.
But what do you have to sacrifice for yourself to create that happiness in the world, and does it really matter?
Do you so Naval has very much the philosophical approach. I know you're quite close with Toby Pierce, who is a big reader and works in that, loves that whole philosophy world. I am a big lover of that space as well. Is that something you've turned to recently? Like, where did that shift come from? Where, because your YouTube channel does talk about, I can make $1 million, I can do this, I can do that. How to build a multi-million-dollar business. It is money focused in some parts. We'll probably see that change over time now, given what you're saying. but where did that shift come from for you? Was it the simple fact that you've now made it, you've built a business that is successful, that you're able to shift your mindset, or
it very well may be because I achieved the milestones, or some of the milestones that I initially had, and I have optionality now. I don't think anyone, and again, stealing Naval, we should just listen to his podcast.
Let's go for it. We could geek out on me all day.
It's very hard to tell someone that doesn't have money that money doesn't buy happiness. But once you achieve it, you can actually see, hang on, this didn't achieve the deep desire that I have, and I thought it would. So you look elsewhere. And I think there's also an element of stoicism and understanding the Stoics of the past that help you within business, because it is all about being at peace with your decision making and understanding that the obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday, amazing book. So there's it kind of converges into, what mentors you're looking up to, why you're looking at them, and then you've previously achieved those goals. So I think that all kind of plays into effect, because it's a common path, like what I'm going through now, where people get a lot of money and they're like, hang on, what am I going to do?
What next?
Yeah, what next? And we have desires. We are humans. I don't think you should completely disconnect. I'm not going to commit to this so much that I'm a monk with no materialistic desires. I can't see that. I think that maybe one day, I don't know, I would never say never, but yeah, I think you need to recognize what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what still allows the other cups of your life, like family or friends, to also be fulfilled. Because if the business and that one desire is draining all of those things that we know biologically are important to longevity and happiness, like the Harvard Men's study is like the longest study of happiness. And that was all about your inner connections, your close circles. So by letting business drain those, we understand through science that that's not a great thing. So yeah, I'm not sure if that made sense.
It did. And I think like we need to catch up outside of this, talk about Ryan Holiday as well, because I am, Obstacle is the Way is definitely a book that had a major impact on me. That with Ego is the Enemy, his book.
I haven't read that, but I will. The Obstacle is the Way, I would have gone through it 3 times now, and every time I go through it, they're kind of milestones of my life. Thought I was going to lose my business twice. I look back at them and they were so small, those moments, but they don't feel small in that moment. But the books like that, just completely having mentors, I don't like to think of mentors as someone that I have a coffee with every week. It's like you can look at people that are even dead as mentors and use their learning. So I really rely on Ryan Holiday and his teachings. Well, they're not even his teachings all the time. Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca and stuff.
Some of my best friends aren't even alive today, mate. Like I just rely on these people and the writings of these people to just to help me through. Yeah, 100%. There's something you mentioned about losing business twice. We're going to dive into that shortly, but I really want to. You talked about happiness. I am in constant search in the pursuit of happiness. To quote that, if we were to think about happiness as a recipe or a concoction or whatever you want, where there's so many different ingredients that go into it, all at different levels, right? They might have 20 mil here and 100 mil of this or whatever it might be. What is your formula right now? What do you think is will help you achieve what you're looking for from the happiness scale?
Sure. I don't think I've got it figured out. No. If I was a 1 to 10 of how I figured out my happiness or myself, I'd probably be at a 3. And I think I'm further than most people as well, to be honest. So I think it's such a long journey, and I don't think being smart helps. There's always famous quotes like, I don't think, constantly critically thinking about everything and stressing yourself out, not even just intelligence, it helps. But
the more you know, the more you realize, the less you know.
It's a vicious kind of cycle of constantly questioning yourself. I do think that it's an element of learning that, we've mentioned these amazing people that have kind of taught us to a degree. And I think it's constantly about expanding those readings and trying to contradict things within that and contradict things in your life that within those readings and just constantly tinkering. I love my life. I think I am happy. I think a lot of that is tied to the optionality that I have because of the success of my business. So if that ever got taken away, I could see myself being unhappy. And that is exposure in itself. So if you're looking at things and if you're looking at certain parts of your life, certain people, and you say, if this got taken away from me, would I be unhappy? That is a problem because you can't control other people. You can't control what happens in business as much as we try to. There's so many black swan events. So I think it's being at peace with, the smallest amount of materialistic possessions and connections as well.
The pressure that comes in with running business is huge, right? And it sounds to me that recently you've put in some time and extra time and effort to read some of the Stoicism, the Marcus Aurelius of the world, Ryan Holiday's, and Naval. Was the learning process of your career, did that start early? Or did you just go, I want to make money, so therefore I'm going to do whatever I can. Now that I've made some money, I'm actually going to try to become a little bit more stoic?
Yeah. Your reading shifts with what you're trying to achieve. There's no doubt about that. You start with business books and eventually you realize all business books are basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Like they're just repackaged ways and you read it and you go, oh, that's so true. It's just like, yeah, because you already know it.
Yeah.
It's the books that you read that you're just like, you need to read 4 times because you don't actually understand it.
Yeah.
And then only until an external thing happens that do you connect it. But yeah, it's kind of, I started with business books and then I think now I'm looking at more like subject matter, like expertise. Like I'm reading a book on AI trying to superpowers at the moment.
I saw that. Did you post that? Yes,
yeah.
I did. That's a good read.
Yeah, really, really cool. I think these are the things where you read 2 chapters and you're like, am I actually interested in this topic?
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing. I don't need to put myself through pain just so I can get a bigger bookshelf.
Agreed.
And I have just always loved the fact that these Stoics and their teachings can last generations. And I think that AI Superpowers book will become irrelevant eventually.
Yeah.
These teachings will always be relevant. And so, yeah, I think that's what I really like about it, but they definitely have shifted. But again, I just try to absorb as much as possible. Yeah.
So to quote Naval, his methodology on reading completely changed my life because I always thought growing up, I have to read the book from start to finish and I need to count how many books that I'm reading. And, it was a race to who could read the most books. And then I remember I heard Naval say one day that he picks up a book, he might read 1 chapter just to get the knowledge out of that.
Yeah.
And then he put it down and I'm like, that is mind-blowing and completely changed my whole approach to reading. Also, early on in my career, I worked with, I had someone who I would consider a mentor. I've done a little bit of property development and played in that world in my life. And this man said to me one day, he goes, your house, the size of your house, like you look at it, you see those big, beautiful houses, right? And they've got this big, beautiful library, And he said to me, the idea of that library and the big, beautiful house, like you can afford the library because you've got this big, beautiful house. It actually works the other way around. Build the library first and then the big, beautiful house will come around it. And it just changed my whole perspective on reading.
So true.
Did you, in your career and your growth towards the David Group and growing all these brands, did you consistently learn and educate yourself throughout that time?
100%. It's the only way you can succeed in business, especially when you're young. You don't have firsthand on-the-job experience, so you need to find people that have done it before, whether that's YouTube videos. we've talked about a lot about reading, and it might sound like I'm some bookworm. The truth is I struggle to read. I don't read heaps and heaps of books a year. I watch a million YouTube videos and I read a million blog posts and I go on PubMed and read studies there. So it's not just about books, but they're the resources that I have relied on to grow very, very quickly. And that's why I put so much time into my YouTube. These people have unlocked the optionality we keep talking about within my life and a degree of happiness as well. So to give that back, I think is really important.
Yeah, hands down. Podcasts are also one.
Sorry, podcasts, actually, to be honest, podcasts, I would almost put that above YouTube, to be honest, in how I've absorbed.
Downloading the information from other people's brains,
exactly.
Learning from their experiences. The going back to the topic of happiness, you mentioned earlier that if your business got taken away from you, there might be an element of you being unhappy. You know the formula though now, don't you? Couldn't you just recreate this?
100%. And that's the argument you use for yourself when you're feeling connection and attachment to something like that. I would probably do it quicker than I have done it now, to be completely honest. And that there's a certain empowerment with knowing that you have learnt the skill sets required to create whatever you want within your life. So let's compare that to something else where, let's say, you just invested in Bitcoin. Hats off to you. Your neighbor said that they invested in it. You put a bunch of money in it. Now you're a multimillionaire. If that gets taken away from you, do you still have the skill set and discipline or the capital allocation decisions to make that into what you want it to be? So it's
no different to winning the lottery, right?
Exactly. And most of those people lose their money anyway and become really, really unhappy. Which, so there's so much. We talked about positive feedback loops as well. The most important thing you can do is align those learnings that you are currently doing to the end result, not just like what's going to happen next week, not the month after, but reading this book is going to give me whatever I want and that mansion, as you said it. So that creates that positive feedback loop.
Early in your career, you started out, and we'll talk about formula. You started out hacking Instagram and helping businesses grow through their accounts and followings and all the above. I really struggle in this space. It's something that Gabriella and the team in my team always say, Dan, you need to be a little bit more active. People want to hear what you have to say, all the above. What do you think, what are the benefits from growing these social media accounts, and does it help fast track some of the growth that you see within those businesses?
It's incredibly powerful. Mr. Beast just opened a restaurant and so there was like 10,000 people stormed the mall and he filled out a whole mall. People were camping out for 24 hours. That is the power of community and these followings. He did 100 million in his first year without opening a restaurant, just selling like a franchise model, a digital franchise model through Uber Eats. These communities are so, so powerful. There is the transactional element where you could just build a platform to advertise through, and that's kind of the influencer model. But I think if you can build a community where you really support people, all of the brands, the future direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands, the big ones, will have that sense of following and that community behind them. The digital platforms, they will get an influencer behind it, and they will be the biggest. Kim Kardashian just launched a fund as well, like yesterday. If you think about the value proposition of someone like me, Oodie's just in the early stages, and I go to one of these venture funds that they have, a bunch of investments and some good strategic advisors, or I go to Kim Kardashian and she can just post and just literally annihilate the competition and capture all of the market share within a week. It's a no-brainer. So community is so good, and the way to do it is through those digital channels.
As a CEO or managing director of a business, what can I do? Because I don't want to be the
Sure.
person that just stands in front of the camera and going, hey guys, like,
Yeah.
although I do that every now and again, it's just more because the imposter syndrome kicks in. Why would anyone want to listen to what I have to say?
So I think there's a few things to unpack there. First of all, is it worth it for a CEO? We're capital allocators and we're time allocators. As a CEO, it might not be the best use of your time. Like everything, is there someone we can hire to do that, to leverage that? And they might, and then there's the other point, which is maybe it's just insecurities coming out, that maybe that is the best of your use of your time, but you're making excuses. We've talked about happiness. There's no point if you are successful and have optionality to put yourself through an unhappy thing to create money. That's against what we're trying to do in our lives. We're trying to create freedom. And you are going to tie yourself to that role because once you're there, you are irreplaceable. So there's like a lot of things to consider. No situation is going to be exactly the same. I don't regret like doing it for myself. Obviously, it's incredibly rewarding, but I don't recommend every single CEO to try to capture their audience through TikTok, and it also might not align with their brand. If you're a serious brand, you're dancing around on TikTok, it's going to discredit you.
Yeah.
So the way we did it at the Oodie, which was quite quick, not many people had done this, but it wasn't intentional, is we had a very, very talented person in customer service that had already grown a TikTok following, and she just became the face of the Oodie. She handles the entire account. She creates all the content. She's on the platform 24/7, and we can measure the return on investment via post-purchase surveys. So you understand how much this platform actually brings in. Incredibly lucrative for us, but for a smaller business, you need to justify it. And there's sometimes also role sharing abilities because we're talking about creating content here. So, there's plenty of places that you need content created that could get a return on investment, and you could just share that resource to at least explore something like TikTok and that stuff.
Yeah. In the corporate world, building Instagram and LinkedIn in the corporate world is one that is probably more prevalent. Is there a different approach for a LinkedIn, or is that something you've explored?
Sure. Twitter is very underrated.
Yeah,
Twitter is incredible.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm been meaning to get around it, but I don't think it'd be very hard to growth hack 100,000 Twitter followers quite quickly and get millions of impressions.
Why is that? Why?
It's just a great platform. Just to create, the community is strong, the ability to grow is strong. There's not many ads that really disrupt the platform. One like and it goes to the followers. It's just like LinkedIn as well. Yeah. So LinkedIn, there's people that have been on Twitter for ages that are now sharing that Twitter content onto LinkedIn, and it's just going viral because they really do give a lot of impressions quite cheaply. So I think you've identified the two opportunities that I see there as well to grow those platforms, and it's text-based content as well, which is much, much easier. To a degree, copy, we've really struggled to find a great copywriter that can replicate my tone of voice and understand the subject matters deeply as well. So,
brilliant. So your advice would be for everyone to try to grow that. If you're looking to grow and scale your business.
It depends on what business. It depends what returns you're going to get. It depends how easily you can track those returns. It also depends on what your long-term objectives is. These things are non-linear. If it goes crazy, it'll 100x your business in 3 years. So it's just about understanding the return on investment timeline as well.
Yeah. So for any startup or entrepreneurs, would your advice be to get onto the social media platforms and just promote the shit out of it, right? Or would it be like
at least test it?
At least test it.
You'd
be silly not to.
You'd be silly not to. There's so many social media platforms that I'd be surprised in any business model that you couldn't get one of them to work. If it's painting, like even for a service provider for painting commercial houses, TikTok's going to work for you.
There's something so calming about the brush stroke.
It is. If you're a service-based consulting business, LinkedIn's and Twitter's probably going to work for you. Yeah. So,
how do you overcome? You and I talked about this off air before, where the idea of speaking publicly or people listening to what we have to say and actually it meaning something to them, right? How do you deal or manage the imposter syndrome that goes with those videos? How do you, like, I spoke to our PR person yesterday. She's like, Dan, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's like, literally the response that came out of my mouth was, why would anyone want to listen to me? Like, there's so many other great, like Naval, there's, these type of characters out there. Why would they listen to me?
Yeah. Look, I don't know. And, I think, I question that. I don't know whether I undervalue or overvalue how much people listen to me. Yeah. Maybe I'm in the middle somewhere. I think the imposter syndrome is all around growth. If you don't have imposter syndrome, chances are you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough or putting yourself in growth situations. So I have very deep imposter syndrome. I don't know when it will go away, if it will ever go away, but it's just something that, I'm working on. I think I'm just trying to become more happy and complacent with how I see myself rather than how other people see myself. I think it is definitely one of my negative traits is how much I do care. So it's just something to work on.
How do you push aside the naysayers?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've been asked this question a lot. Maybe it's my mindset around it, but I don't feel like I have, at this point in my life, could change. I don't feel like I have that many people like trying to put me down. Maybe I just ignore them. Maybe my team hides the comments. I don't know. Yeah. It's just we talk about tall poppy syndrome here. That's an Australian term. But I haven't really experienced it that much, or maybe it's been hidden behind fake smiles. I don't know. But I feel very fortunate and supported.
Because there's a book that I'm reading at the moment. Have you heard of Alex Hormozzi?
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, I
literally love him.
So his $100 million offer book is one that I'm sort of diving into at the moment. He's big on TikTok and Instagram and all the above. And there's some points in there that he talks about from a growth and hacking scale point of view that talks about the numbers that you're earning from a revenue perspective can almost seem illegal, right? Yeah. It can almost seem like, do you ever get that? Like, I was thinking about it because there's people, he goes, he ran an event and it was to his highest paying people. They were all paying $45,000 to be there, and he had 1,000 people there. And his dad rings him and he's saying, I thought you were only getting your highest accounts there. Like, you've got 1,000 people there. He goes, how much do you charge them? He says, $45,000. He's like, and they're all, is that legal? Like, is that, so there's this perception of this money and the amount that you're earning that people actually think, are you?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's all relative. People will talk about like how I'm quite humble around the results of what I've achieved. It's nothing compared to what other people achieve. Like, what does Amazon make a day? Yeah. It's just not even close, and that's almost unfathomable. Talk to someone in business 30 years ago, and they just couldn't even comprehend the amount of money Apple and Amazon make. So I think it's all relative. The leverage that digital media provides puts us out of our comfort zone because we see a city. We drive around a city and we see 10 people at a given time, or we're at a concert and we see 50,000 people. It's only when you're flying over a city, you realize how untapped or how commercial everyone actually is and how big the pie actually is for everyone. And that's the beauty of capitalism. So yeah, I think I get that. We did 1.7 million in a day just selling Oodies. And I'm just like, how is there this many people? And then you fly over the world and you just kind of realize how exciting things actually are and how many opportunities there are.
Do you ever just smile at
all
yourself?
The time? Yeah, it's great. If I'm not smiling, I have to check myself and just be like, this is great.
Like, you pinch yourself, right?
And the times that you need to smile is when things are going wrong. Because they're not actually
is that like
wrong.
The Joker type smile? Like,
no, the little fake smile, you're just crying inside. No, I think, if I lost it all tomorrow, it would take me 2 days, but I would smile and I would just get on with it.
But the smile of knowing the impact, or me coming here today and I'm telling you that my whole family wear Oodies. You're having an impact on people's lives. And the calming blanket for me is my wife works in the world of occupational therapy for children. And so the weighted blanket itself has a really calming effect on children, right? So it is impactful, it is purposeful. There is some really great stuff with that. That you're having impact on people's lives. Does that hit you?
Yeah. The Oodie's mission is to create moments of joy and happiness. And I think it does that. We all have those sad nights where we're, not feeling good about ourselves or we're anxious, and the Oodie does bring comfort. And that makes me very happy. It's a fun, there's videos of people having sleepovers where Oodie's laughing at each other. There's friends in the morning walking to Hungry Jack's together wearing the Oodie. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing, and the whole team takes a lot of pride in that. Aside, I love bringing joy through brands that people can all talk to each other about as well. We talk about software apps that make billions of dollars, and it's kind of we're not, they're boring businesses. They're very lucrative businesses because of that. I generally try to avoid that because I like telling people, talking to people about my businesses and things like that. But I also, I'm not naive to the fact that there are bigger issues in the world than those small moments for people. There's bigger things that entrepreneurs like myself, look at Elon Musk, what is he solving for humanity?
Yes.
And when there is an element of, if you have the ability to change something powerful like that, you feel somewhat of an obligation to go after a bigger issue and try to solve that. And I do have that pull, and we're talking about this push-pull thing around taking less on and being peaceful, but at the same time wanting to change the world. And it's a massive conflict. But, right now I need to do what's right for my business that I've got. I've got employees. I've got people that, I'm getting older. There's an element that I need to set myself up for security. So I'm not taking on those big issues, but eventually I would hope to.
Brilliant. Have you seen I saw a TikTok post the other day, someone walking down the Torrens River in their big purple hoodie, and I had to laugh. And I'm just thinking, there's so many of them. It's great. You're a new Kathmandu jacket, right?
Kathmandu jacket, and the I.M. Williams.
So let's talk about the growth of the Davey Group and particularly Oodie and on that. You really boomed over COVID. But then you mentioned earlier in this conversation that you almost had the business go under.
Yeah.
Can we explore that?
Sure. So we experienced rapid growth in COVID. There was two arguments to be made during that period when the lockdown stopped. Was e-commerce penetration has increased and this is somewhat sustainable. Hindsight's 2020. That's not what happened. It came off. There was huge inflation prints. There was a lot of problems in the world. The iOS updates happened, which decimated digital advertising. All of that created a bit of a perfect storm. At the time, I had a very, very large team that were working on lots and lots of brands because I was hedging that our process and our business strategy was 100% sound and we could grow it really rapidly and keep the change was here. The shift from retail to DTC was here. That's quite dramatic, but that was kind of the thinking. That isn't what happened. We needed to restructure the organization and put more focus on the Oodie, which was the main bread maker. We were trying to diversify horizontally when we should have been scaling vertically through the Oodie, which is an amazing brand. It was a really strong lesson in capital allocation and pushing for growth past a point that we shouldn't have been. And unfortunately, it was a very hard lesson. It was a very stressful time. There was lawsuits going on as well. So it was a tough tough learning experience.
Oh,
and COVID as well.
I can feel my chest just tensing up, like in just understanding and knowing what you would have been going through. Do you, how did you manage that personally through that time? How did you get through that?
You know, I look back at it. I lost friends out of my organization. You know, I lost a lot of people that really put their faith in me and were working incredibly hard for the company's vision. That was the hardest part, knowing that I let them down. So yeah, it was tough, but the beauty about our company is that they all got jobs within a week because everyone wants to hire from our company, which is really good. And I take a lot of pride in that, knowing going forward that we need to keep investing in our people and training our people so that is always the case. And they never go out worse off than if they were going to go somewhere else. That's, you know, kind of my mission at the moment, understanding the value of that. So yeah, but in terms of myself, it was very, very hard in terms of like business learnings. It was invaluable. Like I'm better because of it.
And 3 MBAs in one, really.
Yeah, it's, you know, the worst lessons. The only thing that's true failure is when you get out of the game, and I'm not out of the game. Yeah. So I think that's the main thing, and you know, you learn from it. So it's just a lesson in not taking on leverage. It's a lesson on understanding that during this growth stage of a business, you don't understand the variables, and chances are you're not working on the business, you're in the business. And that's what we were. We were just growing so quickly. It was absolute chaos. I just don't even know how to frame it compared to where we are now. We're a pretty functional business now. So yeah, I wasn't at a point where I could apply just capital to problems and it would get a direct return on investment. There was no measurement of that. So it was a really good lesson about checking yourself and staying humble during those periods. There's so many accounts.
Did the chaos come from your lack of clarity and vision for the business as the CEO?
Yeah, I would say that would be the main issue. Lack of clarity. Yeah, I would say.
So you're aware of that?
Yeah.
The reason for it all sort of.
Yeah, lack of clarity, but you know, it's kind of, it might be semantics, but it's a lack of business strategy, right? Lack of process as well. That they're the main things. But there was macroeconomic shifts, and this is something as when you got your first business, you don't understand. I've never been through a recession. Yeah. I don't understand what this is. I've never seen boom and bust cycles as well with pandemic. I couldn't have known what to suspect, but these are the things that you need to plan for as a CEO, understanding that you don't know everything and making sure that your business isn't in a fragile state, build an anti-fragile business.
We've had have you ever met Jindo Lee?
No.
He's the founder and CEO of Happy Co, which is a company that's been grown out of Australia.
Great things.
Yeah. So had Jindo on the podcast. And when he was on, he said, with the growth and scale of his business, because they're in Silicon Valley now and grown, not in Silicon Valley, but they're in America somewhere doing some amazing things. He said, every dollar that I earned was the biggest business I've ever run. Every new person that we had hired was the biggest business I'd ever run. So you're actually trying to, and you heard the Vino Mofo podcast recently with Paul Edgington. He said, we're trying to upgrade the plane as we're flying, right? Like it's this constant iteration. Where did you manage to turn the ship around or stop the leaky bucket in the sense where did you hire someone with a little bit more of a strategic mindset? How did you
It's all your senior leadership team.
It is.
And I didn't know that. And now we have a very, very good senior leadership team. And my life has completely changed. So I'm starting to get this philosophy that if something is hard in business, you just have the wrong person there as a leader. And that might sound like a cruel thing to say. Maybe they're better somewhere else, or maybe they're just not
for your business at that particular time, right?
You know, this is the hard thing. You're upgrading the plane as you're flying. You can't afford a good captain initially, like a very experienced captain, or that captain changes as they need to go as you grow. So we're at a place now where we have a great senior leadership team. I'm actually announcing a new CEO very, very shortly, and it's a very functional business because these people are better at certain elements than me as well. So
yeah. Do you So that's exciting. New CEO. Have you? I think that's something that I've always sort of toyed with, is that could someone run this business better? Like I run my own business. Could someone run this better than what I do? Is that the sort of the area where which you hit?
Yeah, I think I understand my limitations and where I need to grow. And I've learned a lot about leadership and leadership training, company culture. I learned by trial by fire with that kind of stuff. In hindsight, I didn't learn the theory quick enough because I was in a chaotic business. I was doing the marketing. I was still the CMO. I was, running ads and stuff like that to very, very late in the game. So it needed me to step out, learn the theory, apply it, get a better mentor in that area. And I didn't do that. But I am getting better at that right now. Where the business is at, I think there are better leaders than me to lead this business, and the skill sets and the shift that needs to happen to make Oodie, a $500 million brand. So I'm humble enough to admit that. I don't think that will always be the case. I would hope that I grow to the point where I can, lead $1 billion brand. So yeah, it's part of it, I guess. But that being a CEO is not really something I want to do either. I want to work in lots of fun things and hire fun people or great people and work in really cool spaces, and to work within a business and be a CEO. It's not a part-time job. I was spending 1 or 2 days a week on it for a business that size. Yeah. That's not fair to everyone.
No.
They need that one person committed. So really wanting to work on lots of different businesses mean I need to be one removed from the senior leadership team as well.
Are you the sole founder?
Yeah.
And the only shareholder?
Yeah. At this point, so looking to grow that and expand that. Yeah. Is that part of the global domination, I guess, of the expand? Because what is that 60-40 split now, isn't it? The 60% still coming from Australia, but 40% overseas. Yeah, roundabouts.
Yeah. What's the play? I think I've read in some of that in some of these articles that you are really going to push the American market. Is that?
Yeah, the American market. I like the European market as well, and the UK market. It's good.
Go where the snow is, right?
we do a fair bit of trade in New Zealand as well.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And the idea of announcing the new CEO is to really expand that part and make sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great under their leadership.
There's a Marianne Williamson quote that I love. I don't know if you've ever watched Coach Carter. Surely you would have seen that movie, Coach Carter, it's a famous scene in a movie, but it's a Marianne Williamson quote where she says, "It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us." How does that play out for you when growing? You talk about billion-dollar brands, and I think if we talk in Europe, we're talking America, Australia, New Zealand, all the above, and growing. There is really sort of no bounds to the level in which you can grow. Does that frighten you?
Mm-hmm. Look, it didn't initially. I was like, let's conquer the world. But we chatted on it before. It's loss aversion. It's a really big problem that when people make more money, they get more fear of losing money and they stop investing the capital. So I think that would be the downfall if I kind of did get too afraid of that and started applying. So I'm checking myself, am I in a time of uncertainty around the macroeconomic conditions right now? It's stupid to just be deploying it as we were before, but I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it does. So what is then the ultimate play with the David Group?
Yeah. So I think where I currently sit, I think we could, if we can add some more portfolio companies to the group that, get us more around the $500 million top line mark, highly profitable, and we can prove that we have a way of growing these brands very, very confidently and very, very sustainably as well. I think that you could IPO or you could do a private sale. I think my future would be around owning portfolios of companies as well and buying, whether it's a small stake or so I think that's what really excites me. have a lot to learn in that area. I'm not even, I've done one acquisition, and while it's an amazing company, I could have executed far better on that. So yeah, I think that's the future for me. The future for the brands are very wide. Like they can go lots of different ways. I think that's the beauty of the Oodie. There's really no, like that brand, the way it performs in every single metric, the team behind it, there's really no limit to what the Oodie can achieve. It can be a household brand globally. We just need the right product strategy. We need to keep executing that. And over time, there's can be some really big things for that brand.
What keeps you waking up every morning and getting back into this and going through the grind every single day?
I think it's, just recently I couldn't get up. I was just, you go through these kind of, they're not depression cycles, because, I don't want to trivialize that word of depression. But, you just feel depressed. You don't want to get up. And
it's crippling.
It's crippling. It really, really is. And that's when you look at your calendar and you go, what am I doing that I don't want to do anymore? And then you need to hire. You need to remove yourself from that. You need to stop doing that. And you can just, generally, I just go in these stints. I just burn myself out. Like it'll be generally 2-month stints. I'll just go 4 to 6 o'clock, just absolutely go crazy, not relax over the weekends, work all the weekends, and just push myself to the breaking point. And then I'll just be like, okay, no. And then I generally need to have like half a week off and slow down a bit. And I don't think that's a healthy cycle, by the way, but that's just how I do these big sprints and stuff like that. Now I'm trying to just remove myself from the day-to-day, which I think is far more sustainable, getting headspace. And I just write some big memos and some ideas. I'm trying to document my ideas a little bit better, how to create growth for these companies that I own, and put the strategy in the right direction for the CEOs.
Is there a bit of anxiety with hiring in a new leader and maybe losing some of the control?
There's anxiety with every hire.
Yeah.
It's such a crazy thing to give someone so much faith, and you just don't know. It's such a crazy thing, especially when you're somewhat removed from the business. Oodie, I'm obviously quite understanding of where it's at, but there's the businesses where you don't have full visibility on it. It's very hard to check your CEO because people are charismatic. People can very much believe in what they're saying, and you need to go through a whole process to unravel it and apply your judgment. So it creates a lot of anxiety, that's for sure. It's a lot of trust as well. You're trusting them with a lot.
Is that the main thing that'll keep you up at night? Or what, if not, what is?
I don't really have any. I think controlling myself and my path is the thing that keeps me up at night, knowing that my actions are solely responsible for where everything will go.
It's the pressure.
It's not the pressure. It's just about like understanding my shortcomings and that I have the ability to derail things or create things. So I just need to check myself and just constantly be like, is what I'm doing constructive for these businesses? Is what it's doing constructive for my health? And those kind of things. But truthfully, not much keeps me up at night unless there's absolute chaos and something, your black swan event.
But guarantee you've woken up in cold sweat some nights.
Like, not for a while.
Okay, good.
Like so generally only legal orientated when there's uncertainty around control.
Yeah. Because
you're relinquishing control and you have a very lack of understanding.
I think that's the part that I was trying to get to was the lack of control that just how do we manage that? How do we manage the lack of control and put our trust into other people?
Yeah. It's just about proper process and proper communication, having the right checks and balances, reporting, having your clear vision. If you can't picture something and how it's going to play out, chances are there's a flaw in it. So really being able to visualize what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, making sure that your leaders also understand and can see that clear vision, repetition, reporting, and that's the key. If you stepped away for 2 months and came back in, I would be in cold sweats. I'd be like, I have no control whatsoever. I have no visibility. That would just be chaos. So you try to keep your finger on the pulse a bit.
Yeah. Are you getting better at the management and the trust that you put into people?
Yeah, I'm getting better at most things.
So that chaos of the early days,
yeah,
you've learned from those experiences.
Yeah, it's very hard to learn how to manage without working with a really great manager. Yeah. I didn't even know how to set a meeting or an agenda 2 years ago. I had no idea what I was doing. Like it was literally chaos. I hired my executive assistant without an interview. Yeah, I just called her and was like, "Can you start Monday?" I was drowning, so that was the worst thing you can do. It turns out she's absolutely incredible, but she's quite lucky.
Is that Katie?
Katie. She's great. Incredible. So, I've come a long way in that management, and it's thanks to working with my COO. She's awesome, and working with other great leaders as well, like Toby. Toby mentors me as well. So it's been those kind of people that have rubbed off on me really, really in a good way.
What was one lesson through that chaos period that will hold the Davey Group and the Oodie business in good stead from now into the future?
Yeah. I think really just understanding what your business is. What is your strategy? Is it sustainable? Is it anti-fragile? Those kind of things. One iOS change and our business halves. That is not stable. Granted, I don't even think Facebook understood their platform reliance for Apple, so it'd be hard for me to predict that. But it's just a lesson in diversification and stability.
Yeah, I really liked your point earlier about instead of trying to spread too thin in horizontally, think vertically. It's definitely goes to the point of really niching out, right, on your product. The more you try to do, the more chance that there is.
Yeah, well, it's capital allocation. Where is the best use of my finite capital? And I was being told by all these private equity firms and VCs that you need to be more diversified. I took that as more brands. But truth is, it was better off being spent diversifying and supporting the Oodie, which we now do to its full degree. So, yeah, it's an interesting lesson.
You're a big lover of innovation as well, which is quietly publicised a fair bit. You've got a future day, is that correct? Is that what you talk about? I've read something that there's a one day a week, or that you have a future day, or you spend working towards projects in the future. Is that something?
I'm not sure where you got that from. I kind of do something like that. I definitely block out 4 hours where I just kind of walk around and just think about it.
Yeah.
AI, that's revolutionary what's happening there with image generation. And then also, the future of communities. And
so is that your role now that you see moving forward, that you're constantly, I think you're the creator of ideas, or is that something that you're going to ask your team to create ideas? How are you going to manage that?
There needs to be team input. That's what you wanted a lesson before. It's like you need to bring in the team to make these decisions, and because they will have ideas. You can make the final say so, but decision-making processes need as many alternatives as possible to be as accurate as possible. So, I see my vision as a capital allocator, hopefully, and an idea generator. I'm relatively creative, so I think that there's always going to be that point. But it's about building these acquisition channels aside from Facebook and Instagram that can support these businesses. Once you have them, the value of a business to you is disproportionate to the value of the current owner. And I think that that's a really exciting premise. We've got extra distribution, which is not a new model. I didn't create that, but with the power of YouTube and TikTok, I think it's more powerful than ever. Brilliant.
I'm conscious of your time. Just a couple of quick questions before we wrap up. In one of your videos, you talked about how you almost broke $1 million business or a multi-million-dollar business. And some of the lessons that came out of it were don't scale too fast, measure profits from the business independently, get your team structure right, stay humble, don't wait too long to see when something isn't working, and achieve a true moat in business strategy. That's the part I want to pick on. Achieve a true moat in business strategy. Can you talk to us about that?
I think there's very few things in the world that are actual moat. I would probably be able to challenge any person that says a business has a true moat. Like patents, just forget about it. Like it doesn't, it's somewhat of a moat. So I think it's not binary. I think brand is a big moat. I think product design is a big moat as well. So when we look at the differences between Calming Blankets and the Oodie, Calming Blankets is the business we were referring to. It was incredibly successful business, doing over $3 million profit a year. And during COVID period, when it was incredibly easy to make money in e-commerce, we managed to turn it into an unprofitable business due to supply problems and a lot of other things that you kind of just mentioned. But then we've got the Oodie, which you cannot get an Oodie from another brand. You could get a weighted blanket that is a similar emotional connection or value proposition from another brand, whether it be a cheaper, lesser quality one from a department store or a high quality one that is the exact same price as ours. So product is a really, really important part of it. And the Oodie, you can't get those characters. You can't get out our quality for the Oodie is the best quality out there as well. So I think, and then also our customer service, you're not going to get the same customer service. We have the most 5-star reviews out of any brand. So all of these kind of things play into the brand as a whole. Whereas Calming Blankets, we didn't succeed from that. And we were diversifying through products with very, very similar value proposition that were just cannibalizing each other and increasing our SKU count. And that was a very, very poor business strategy in hindsight. Whereas Oodie, we're collaborating with new people, we're diversifying our product range to include more commoditized categories like sleepwear and stuff like that. We're also, the licensing partnerships that we have, the joy that can bring to people is very, very hard to replicate as well. And we're also getting our acquisition strategy for Oodie as, pretty world class as well. So we have a lot of assets.
Brilliant. I'm so interested, off the topic of business strategy and moats, how did you manage the growth? And from you mentioned supply was a problem. How did you foresee that you would need this huge warehouse? How did all that sort of come into play?
That was probably one of my greatest shortcomings, is not realizing, and nobody would have guessed that you were good at this being. I wouldn't have either, but I definitely didn't use scenarios that were happening next to me around these DTC brands that were growing to these kind of levels as a reference point. Okay, this might be a ceiling here rather than here. And that short-sightedness has cost us probably hundreds of millions. Like in forecasting, in poor business decisions, it's in revenue, probably over $100 million. We lost $40 million alone in October, November last year when we had no stock in the Northern Hemisphere for our winter, because I didn't know how to forecast. I didn't have my senior executive that I now have who has hired proper forecasters and built the processes for it. So to answer your question, how did I manage it? Very poorly. But we're good now.
That's the joys of growing and scaling.
I don't beat myself up about it.
No.
Well, I try not to.
Well, because you're still uber successful, right? So kudos. Your YouTube channels are changing lives. We've got Anusha here who's been following you, as our videographer, who's been following you for a while. He said that he's even implemented some of the stuff that you've done. Do you get many of those stories from your YouTube alone, not just Oodie and all the above, but have you heard, you sort of how to build $1 million business from scratch and you take people through it? Have you gotten comments going, I've done it?
Well, we only started about 8-9 months ago. So, and these things take time. There has been small, I'm talking about a very successful business that's grown out of the teachings. But we have had, small stories where, they've said that I have helped them, and it's amazing. It's really, really good. We've definitely heard them. We've built a mentorship group as well. I quite outwardly say the standard courses that are sold nowadays are just packaged information that, I'm going to give you on YouTube instead. And they're just predatory on smaller people that can't afford that. So I have just created like a mentorship group for it's like $9 a month where people can come into the community and I'll just answer as many questions and just go live as possible. You know, typical mentors I pay my mentor like $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month even. So
Correct.
it's I'm trying to and out of that. So my point was that there's a lot of stories coming now from that community where they're now sending screenshots and I'm like, oh wow, this is actually really
share
really
those stories. I know you will, but there's
I should eventually.
It's the feel good stuff that you are having an impact and more just from the brand Oodie and calming blankets and the like.
Sure. Appreciate that.
What are areas that that you think that Oodie will expand to, or it's not Oodie, the David Group will expand to in future?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in software as a service, enabling the e-commerce industry. You know, I just built a piece of software that has my product process in it, where it scrapes lots of data points around and connects to a lot of APIs to really understand trends as a whole and understand trend timing as well when a good product is to launch. So it's kind of those things that enable our processes that I'm a big believer in. I'm a big believer in AI as well, as I've mentioned, and how that can kind of change the landscape. So, I think I'll expand into industries that I really like. I can see a clear future for them. I can see them growing. I can see a path to retail and wholesale to ensure that we are omni-channel, learning my lesson from something like calming blankets, not just being DTC. Which, you know, Oodie, we're working on the wholesale component now, which shouldn't be too difficult considering our brand equity. So, yeah, I think, taking playbooks from the path has been made by, Warren Buffett, all of these other capital allocators. It's about us walking it and understanding where our strengths are without getting spread too thin.
Very good. So the world's your oyster, isn't it, really? Now, I am conscious of your time. You are looking to – we have to wrap up now. At the end of the podcast, we typically ask some quick-fire, fun questions. Feel free to elaborate. Feel free to give me one-word answers. Answer them however you like. But we are big readers. We've talked a lot of books. There's probably a show notes going to have a list full of books in there. But what is something that you are reading right now?
The Chinese AI superpowers is what I'm reading right now. I'm also reading 0 to 1 again. I like 0 to 1.
Yeah, ripping book. If there's one book that you could recommend to those who are looking to grow and scale their business, what would that be?
Good to Great by Jim Collins.
It's brilliant, isn't it? What about a book on exploring self?
The Way to Love, Anthony DeMello.
The Way of Love.
The Way to Love, I believe it's called. It's Anthony DeMello.
Yeah, I like Anthony. Brilliant. Is there any
or the Naval, Malcolm?
Yeah,
or whatever
the Almanac of Naval. It's not written by Naval. It's just
Tim Ferriss wrote it.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss and some other a journalist, I think, pulled that together of all of his teachings.
I don't think you need to read that if you're going to just listen to every single podcast he's ever done. Which is what I do, but it's worth a skip.
And some of his podcasts are 2 minutes long.
They're great.
Is there any other podcast that you listen to, obviously, other than this one, right?
100%. Podcast, you need one good hack is getting your favorite author, just writing their name and searching it in Spotify, and you'll get some of the best podcasts ever. Then you can search subject matters. I actually really like My First Million. It's a great podcast. It's great fun. All in podcasts, I like the way the billionaires think, and I think you get a real raw look into that. And then there's a bunch of e-commerce ones as well that are worth a listen if you're interested in that space.
Which ones are they?
E-commerce Fuel is a good one.
Okay.
It can be a bit dry if you're not into e-commerce.
Yeah, but for those who are specifically into that, great. What's one lesson that's taken you the longest to learn?
Oh, that's a good one. I think that the thing around people took me a long time to learn, about delegation and just understanding that you don't need to do it all, and there's probably someone better that can do it. I listen to founders and very successful people, and they say that, I can do anything if I wanted to the best, like that I think that underappreciates the fact that you're not going to apply yourself as hard as these other people in that area because it bores you or something like that. So I kind of I've just grown to appreciate people in roles that do an amazing job, and that just changes your happiness. It changes your business success rate and all of that kind of stuff.
I can't do it all.
Can't do it all.
Yeah. If you could invite 3 people for dinner, who would they be?
I get this question a fair bit. Usually I say, billionaires and do boring answers.
Uh-huh.
I like Sam and Sean from My First Million podcast.
Yeah.
They are so good at just ideas, nonstop. So, and then I'll go Alex Hormozi as well. He's an absolute beast. So those guys would be a very, very entertaining dinner.
I love Alex's non-bullshit, I actually don't care approach.
He's a great communicator.
Yeah.
I liken him to Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
In that they can communicate, and even Naval, in the complex things communicated very simply and tailored for people and the right person. So that's something that, I struggle with, is communication and clarity of thought. So I generally admire people that can do it well.
What's some of the best advice you've ever received?
It's great advice. Don't be afraid to slow down your decision making. I've listened to plenty of amazing CEOs that say, like, and I subscribe to this mentality of action creates information, and make a decision, but not until you have got the amount of information that you need, or if it's not time urgent, don't make the decision quickly, because more information presents itself. So I think that's been pretty powerful to my growth as well.
Yeah. The struggle is understanding the urgency.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a touch and feel thing where you start to learn it, and listening consequences is always a big part.
Absolutely. I love it. If you had access to a time machine, where would you go?
Yeah. I wouldn't go anywhere. I think we've just got such an exciting, there's challenging world events right now, and I'm not trivializing any of those, because we're here down in Australia where we have such a privileged life. But I think it's one of the best times to be an entrepreneur in Australia. I would love to see the future. I'd love to see what it holds. But I love where we're at now.
Yeah. Brilliant. I've always said I'd go forward and just get the almanac, right?
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
Sure.
Bring back, put some bets on, then we're set. If your house was on fire and your family and your pets and everyone's safe, what's one thing that you would come back in here and grab?
My laptop.
Your laptop.
Straight away.
It's the thing that can make you the most money.
Yeah.
Because your phone will already be on you.
Give me a laptop and I'll be fine. Just chuck me anywhere.
Brilliant. If you had one superhero power, what would it be? How am I getting stumped on this question? It's the easiest. I know. Surely you're a Marvel fan or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a big Marvel fan. My partner, she's obsessed with Marvel. I just want to be Iron Man. Can I be Iron Man? He doesn't have any powers, but I'm just...
Well, he's the intelligence.
He's the best.
Power, right?
Yeah, true.
Unbelievable.
Super intelligent.
Yeah.
Done.
I love it. And I'm also a lover of, I didn't prep you with this one, but I'm a lover of shit dad jokes. Do you have a bad joke for us that you can share?
I'm like the worst at telling stories and the worst at telling. Do you have a dad joke? Can you give me one?
No, now you put me on the spot. Not one that I haven't probably said on this before, on the podcast before. Now you put me on the spot. Right.
You have to get one.
I do have one. How do you get an elephant into a refrigerator?
How?
Yeah, open the door, put the elephant in, close the door.
That is a bad joke.
How do you get a giraffe into the refrigerator?
The exact same way?
No, you can take the elephant out, then you put the giraffe.
Okay, you get it. No.
Brilliant. Anyway, look, thank you so much for your time today. We'll wrap it up there. It's been an amazing chat, learning a little bit more about what's going on inside your head today than I think we can jump on your YouTube and learn about how to grow and scale and all the success you've had there. But It's been really enjoyable learning. You know, there is a human behind these brands who is actually learning and trying to grow himself and the business as it grows and scales. So, you know, kudos for everything you've done, and kudos for everything you're going to do. I'm very, very excited about where you're going and where the business is going as well.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for thinking of me worthy. It's great.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, it guys. For now. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the podcast all. You can check out the show notes if there was anything of interest to you, and find out more about us at SynergyIQ.com.au. I am going to ask though, if you did like the podcast, it would absolutely mean the world to me if you could subscribe, rate and review. And if you didn't like it, that's all right too. There's no need to do anything. Take care, guys. All the best.